Hello, hello, people of HP and teachers. I'm Gabriel Rodriguez, and here Diego Helvo, and today we're going to present about about the technology of World War I and how it affected humanity on throughout the history. So first of all, we need to know about the back about some background information of World War I. World War I, it was a time in which many countries were in conflict. Like we have two sides. We had the Allies at the front. We had in one side Britain, Russia, and France, and the other side Italy, Austria-Hungary, and Germany. They all fighted because of the death of Archduke Ferdinand in 1914. Through 1914 and 1918, those 4 years were where the war was. And inside of that short time, that wasn't even half of a decade, there were the countries were in pressure of making huge scientific advancements that after the war were very beneficial to the world. Some example of these technologies are actually very common today, and we take it as granted. So some of those are the airplanes, are inalambric communication, and drones. But some of those examples are may you people may not see them as something usual, but they are technically connected to the way that we use the world today. Those are submarines, explosives, and machine gun. How? Well, we need to know that those inventions were actually not only used, but also combined and evolved, not only in World War I, but also in World War II. 20 years after the World War I, they actually took those technologies, and they combined them to actually having a better to actually having even more advanced. And after the Second World War, they actually and they NASA, for example, the Air Force, and those agencies took those technologies and made them onto things like satellites, onto commercial airliners, on phone calls, and those type of things that we take for granted today. So technically, in some way, the destruction technology of World War I is the reason that we have so much a lot of current technologies here on 2021. Diego?
Well, now imagine that you're at your house, eating with your family, you're all in peace. But then suddenly, everything starts to explode and you hear alarms ringing. You see through the window, and to your fear, your neighborhood is now a battlefield. Well, doesn't this frighten you? And well, in that time, this was something completely normal. Everyone feared this. But during the World War One times, it was as normal as you eating. And well, in these times, most these countries that were in conflict had only one purpose: to destroy each other. Those countries were mostly in Europe, and they had been in conflict for years. But then one little event was the one that made suddenly everything go to panic. That event was the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand in 1914. 914. This shows that we as humans can start a war, can kill millions and millions of people just for political, diplomatical, military, or even economic reasons. We as humans can develop technologies that weaken a government or an idea, but we don't take into account that those technologies can also cause hundreds of thousands of families to be separated because of people they don't even know. Some of these technologies were created in World War One, like can be machine guns, explosive, etc. Those mechanisms were promoted to be used by adults in external territories and fight for their country. And the worst of all of this is that people saw that as an honor, and most people wanted to marry someone who has served in the military because that was a sign of bravery and dedication. Those times did not leave anything beneficial to the future generations. Some of these technologies, like car bombs and fire bombs and fire weapons in general, still exist today, and they are just waiting for a conflict to start, and then the same process will repeat. By all means, all people don't want to be in a war, but if the time comes, the government can even force people into the conflict. In countries like Colombia, military service is obligatory, which is obviously not fair, and with that, it is, as it previously, to promote a way of life as something, this way of life as something normal and to be proud. And we have normalized weapons, and wars are only an excuse for some people to promote this. According to Fliegelman 2018, people who saw the ads two or more times were 16% more likely to consider joining the US Navy, and users who saw the ads at least twice were 19% more likely to search for US Navy keywords on YouTube within 3 days. Those agencies were promoted joining them through ads in social media. Keep in mind that joining the Navy is not just signing in, it is very demanding. You need to listen every 10 minutes a supersonic plane take off. And if you're one of those pilots, then you will struggle handling the G-forces. Those, those are the sensation of gravity compared to Earth. And as you go upper and upper, the atmosphere gets thinner and thinner to the point in which you need an oxygen mask to breathe. The absence of oxygen, fighting winds and currents, storms, and all that for a battle that hasn't even started, or protecting people, but actually all they do is harm others. And that is the opposite of the world we want.
Okay, so Mr. Diego. So, uh, as so, okay, you said about all the negative things that are being that are is have something to do with World War One. That it doesn't in the content that you gave us that they does didn't leave us anything beneficial to us. But actually, actually, I'd like to go deeper in the technologies that I mentioned just a few minutes ago. So first of all, planes. Today we need planes for everyday transport, for uh, not just for transporting people, but also transporting cargo. We need it. We need it now because for in this pandemic to transport vaccines to a lot of places very fast. Now, as I also said previously, and the technologies not only were also used but combined or evolved. And a great example of this will be how they combine probably the two most opposite technologies, a plane and a submarine. A plane couldn't go really up, so it was so and there and at lower parts of the atmosphere, as we can see in the chart, there is a lot of drag. But as you go upper and upper, there is less drag, so the plane could move faster. But as Diego said, upper parts in the atmosphere has had less oxygen. That's how they use the pressurization technology of a submarine in aircraft to actually make aircraft go upper and as that faster. Also, to make aircraft more autonomous, they actually use radio communication, so it was more secure and the pilots could be in constant contact with the ground. Also, the drones and the machine gun are all was a way to actually attack the enemy from long distance. So so the Germans in World War II evolved that technology into the ballistic missile, the B-2. And then after the World War, NASA used that technology to create rockets. And in less than 20 years, they had a whole army of technology that of satellites. We have that give us TV, fast internet, and those type of things that we actually need today. Diego.
Okay, well, you talked so much about the plane and how good it is. But do you know how catastrophic the plane was during the war? According to The Balance 2020, World War One was a global military conflict from 1914 through 1980. Well, it killed 9 million soldiers, wounded 21 million, and left 7 million disabled. Another 10 million civilians died. Germany and France each lost 80% of their male population aged between 15 and 49. This clearly shows that between the 4 years and the Great War happened, there were more civilians dead than actual soldier deaths. And most of this conflict happened because of bombarding. And the bombardings were done by the same technology that is planes. Not only this, but most of the deaths were only kids, babies, women, or elders who just wanted peace. And wanting peace, they got the exact opposite war. Some of these people that were killed didn't even knew there was a conflict, and then suddenly they died. And not only that, the airplanes did it, but also dirigibles and all these technologies we can see now that transport people actually were used before to kill people.
Okay, so Mr. Diego, I will not deny that World War One technology caused a lot of deaths. It's true, as you showed us in that chart, there is obviously a lot two outliers of the on where the World War One and Two happened. Yeah, but I need to clarify something that the cause of those deaths were not actually the technology naturally wanted, but the people who actually invented, and those people practically don't exist anymore. A great example of and people can change. A great example of that is that guy that you see of the screen. That is Werner von Braun, a Nazi scientist that developed the ballistic missile that killed the B-2 that killed more than 20,000 people. After the World War, he actually decided that he wanted to use the technology that he made for good. He partnered up with NASA. He made some experiments with NASA, and he actually designed some the rocket that shoot us to the moon, the Saturn V. He is the reason. He is one of the reasons that we have space exploration, and that as we know it today, and how and why we have all those benefits. So, also we need to know that those technologies are a necessity today. They're not just like there for war. We have it is true that in the past they used satellites to spy on enemy countries, but now we use satellites to study not countries but the whole world, the climate of the world, so we can know when it's going to rain at what point, when it's going to be sunlight at one point, so we can have better, for example, crops in the agricultural economy, and even even more, we can actually now have a fast internet, but satellite internet in places that can be accessed by cables, for example the middle of the sea, and all that actually started with the actual with the actual world war, so they did leave us something beneficial. Mr. Diego.
Well, it may be true that the First World War might have brought some new technologies that we use today and are important. But as the all the about we have already talked, that is the plane. Stated by Encyclopedia, airplanes, products of the new technology, were primarily made of canvas, wood, and wire. At first, they were used only to observe enemy troops, and as their effectiveness became apparent, both sides shot planes down with artillery from the grounds and with rifles, pistols, and machine guns from other planes. In 1916, the Germans armed planes with machine guns that could fire forward without shooting off the fighters' propellers. The Allies soon armed the planes the same way, and the war in the air became a deadly business. This shows not only that this technology, at the cost of millions of lives, but also that humanity uses these advancements to create more destructive weapons. Airplanes and zeppelins that were created to peacefully transport people were converted into mass destruction weapons that killed and destroyed. People created things for the good, and then other people came and turned those ideas into something bad. Now, if these ideas can be modified for the worst, then now imagine the creations that made were made during this time. If they use inspiration of something that is already made to destroy, then it is going to be even worse. So my only question is, at what cost are you willing to sacrifice for technological advancements?
Well, well, Mr. Diego, it is true what you said. It is true that we've lost many lives, that we as humans use weapons that were created for good and we use them for bad. That is totally true, and we can agree on that. And we can also agree that no one wants to be in war. But, but, I you need to acknowledge that most people want to stop using the money for war onto on actually things that benefits us, like space exploration, which dates back to World War I. In your screen, you're now seeing the Hiroshima peace flame. You may know Hiroshima because that was the place that the U.S. bombed in World War II. That is the peace flame is a symbol of the dream of the Japanese people to actually destroy all weapons, all nuclear weapons, so we can have world peace. That flame is going was lit in 1964, and it will kept burning until all nuclear weapons have been destroyed. This shows the dream of people to stop actually for spending money and our time on weapons and start using them in actual things that benefit us. According to Goel, the people of Hiroshima, or the people that have felt that the Hiroshima or Nagasaki explosions, said that they want to use the money that we spend on the navy, on the military, on those type of things, on things that can benefit all humanity, and those things not only include hospitals on those kind of things, but it also includes space exploration, satellites, weather broadcasts, and all those type of things, all to have just a better world. Diego.
Well, we can conclude that World War One created catastrophic problems and technological advances that were used in the wrong way because of humanity's way to be, and we created thousands of weapons. And we say that we want to live better lives, but in the reality, the enemy that we have are not on more than the innocent lives. So no one wants to die anymore. All we want is peace. And as Gabriel said previously, we need to stop investing in so much unnecessary weapons. We should start to spend on more important things that can benefit us so we can have a better home.
I guess we can agree on that. So with that, I think this debate is over. Thank you for everyone here to giving us your attention, and have a good day.